You may not be surprised to hear that in Kamchatka, the beverages can be surprisingly strong. And, I don't mean just the vodka. Particularly the tea is surprisingly strong. And that comes from the Russian style of making tea on a samovar, where you've got your water boiling, and then on top of it is a little small pot of tea concentrate. And so the way they make tea is they pour a little bit of concentrate into the teacups and then fill the rest of the thing with water. Except for one time, of course, with reindeer herders, where there's no half measures. They had the usual sort of tin tea kettle and just big gob handfuls of tea going into that pot and have it boiling. And they're filling the cups with this stuff that was just smack you in the face tea, and calling it cognac because that's how dark brown it was. And of course, they made it that strong because you don't have just one round of tea. You're drinking tea till you get really good and warm. And that's really kind of the uniting feature of beverages in Russia, is it's really not so much about the taste, it's about the effect. The sort of dangerous effect I had, so this is in the late 90s, 1997 to be specific, in the autumn. And at that time in Russia, everything was falling to hell, and the state really had receded in a dramatic way, so it wasn't even functioning, including controlling alcohol and monitoring it. And that means it's some dangerous shit out there. People were worried about things that they were drinking, and so it kind of went around that actually the vodka was less to be trusted than this Chinese spirits. So it's basically some sort of Chinese grain alcohol that was 90% alcohol, so double what vodka would be. And I'm in this small village, attended this Thanksgiving ritual, which was like 24 hours of fantastic sorts of giving thanks to seals and bears and snow sheep and dancing, and really interesting. So it's the next day, I'm talking with some guys about what had happened, some hunters and other people, and we're drinking this stuff. And I didn't actually understand that it was surprisingly strong, because it all tastes like shit. So you just shoot it. But then when the room was not just spinning but whirling, I then kind of clocked, this is the Chinese spirit stuff, not your regular vodka. And not only that, but they didn't mix it down, because I've been used to drinking this stuff, and normally when they're drinking the spirits, the grain alcohol from China, which they trusted as being more pure and less likely to make you go blind than the so-called vodka, they'd mix it down 1-to-1 with water, so it'd be like a 45 strength. So that is really the only time that I woke up and the room was still spinning the next day. But the story about the truly surprising beverage was a cup of tea with some mushrooms in it. So, mukhomor in Russian, fly agaric, it's the red with the little white spots. Wapak, they call it in Koryak. So the first time I tried it, it was surprisingly weak in the sense that I felt nothing. And the grannies were like, hey, Alex, you're interested? So yeah, let's try this. And we ate some and had tea and whatnot. And I'm like, there's nothing happening. And the next day, the grannies were like, Alex, did you feel anything? And I'm like, no. And they're like, yeah, neither did we. Those ones were horrible. I think we got some better ones. Let's try this. So then, a couple days later, then I met these two grannies, and we got our mushrooms and tea. And see, they're dried is the main thing. So that's why you take the dried mushroom and you soak it in your tea to make it chewable, really. And so you have this kind of, mushroom tea of sorts, or a tea mushroom tea, I don't know. Anyway, that was surprisingly strong. And then I went with my hosts, which was Valentina, I've mentioned her before, her sister and brother-in-law. I was at their place in Valentina's village. And so we went on a picnic, as you do, in Kamchatka, even when it's, 35 degrees and the snow is barely melting, have a little barbecue. And so I'm hanging out and things are kind of okay, there's a little bit of strangeness, but then I start dropping stuff And the thing about this fly agaric, it kind of gives you a brain a short circuit. And that means, so you literally just, your muscles totally relax for an instantaneous. So I'm dropping my little piece of bread, my teacup, and they're like, oh yeah, the mukamorchik, starting to feel it. And I took kind of a half-waking nap and had a vision of driving through the woods in California, although I'd never been there. But I was thinking about it a lot because my wife had just left in July to go to Berkeley to start architecture school. So I knew then in November when I would join her there in Northern California, and so that was kind of the thing. But also the material I was getting was really important to me to understand the meaning of Koraks, the meaning of humanity, the meaning of life. And I was like, oh, almost there. And then I woke up and I'm like, not quite there. Also, this cider is surprisingly strong. Not a prop. And so I was, experiencing the full effects of this mushroom, although they were kind of disappointed that I hadn't started singing yet. Because the mushroom spirit is supposed to give you a song. And as we were walking back, then I started stumbling. Fortunately, it wasn't so strong of an effect that I did the typical sort of pass out, smack onto the ground and break your nose. I just pass out enough, like a microsecond, so I'd stumble. And here, wait, let me check my note. Breaking the law. That's not music, yeah. So my son's a real metalhead, listening to a lot of Judas Priest. So that's always going in my head. Anyway, so I did make it back to the house in the village, and they asked me about the visions that I saw, and I told them about what I had seen and the spirit of the mushroom. And they said, oh, that makes a lot of sense. It's going to help you write your dissertation, and you're going to go be a science guy, and everything will come together for you. So that was surprisingly good news from this mushroom and my experience with it. Thank you.